All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the Week 15 tristatefootball.com preview show. My name is Safwan Alvi. I am joined, as always, by my friend, by my co host, my partner in crime. His name is Greg Shoemaker. And yet again, we are tristatefootball.com. As always, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms, right? The venue formerly known as Twitter and Instagram at TS Football. Again, that's at TS Football. And you can also like us on Facebook. Just type in the search bar, tristatefootball.com. And you can also like us and subscribe to us on YouTube. Again, tristatefootball.com. All of our coaches' interviews, post game highlights as well. Again, tristatefootball.com on all of our social media and audio platforms. And Greg, what a week 14 it was here in the tri-state area in Southwest Ohio, Northern Kentucky. The playoffs, they just never seem to disappoint in every matchup that we have. We have so much to get to in this week 15, right? We got state semifinal games. We got some really big matchups. We have history to talk about, right, in Southwest Ohio and Northern Kentucky. First one, let's start with Northern Kentucky, right? Let's start with the Bluegrass State here in week 15 as our season continues to wind down and the cream of the crop is still standing over there in the Bluegrass State. I want to start with the Class 6A playoffs, right? Because yes, we are going to get to that Highlands Cooper game, so just stick with us for a second. First, we want to get to that Ryle versus Great Crossing game, Class 6A state semifinals. Greg, Ryle, we love what head coach Mike Engler's doing with this team. They defeated Louisville St. Xavier a couple weeks ago, and you talked about how that was such a historic win, right, for the program and their chances for a state championship in 2024. Talk to me about this state semifinal game and Ryle's chances to head to Kroger Field.
Yeah, how about this, Safwan? We got Class 6A District 6. We have Great Crossing and Ryle in a rematch. And then in Class 5A District 6, we have Highlands and Cooper in a rematch of the regular season. So it's kind of rare that this has happened, but because they're reseeding because of your Sagarin ratings. Because remember, when we were in the studio on Friday, I thought Beechwood was playing Somerset, but they hadn't reset the Final Four based on power rankings and the Sagarin rankings. So this is one of those games where it just happens to be that way. Great Crossings played great since losing to Ryle in week 8. They lost 36-8, and Ryle really handled them, giving up 68 yards rushing and 69 passing in that game. And it was all Raiders in that one, and it's back on their home field again, like the first matchup was. But since then, Great Crossing has done great, has been fantastic at taking care of business. So the Warhawks are going to be a different team than the Raiders faced 5 weeks ago.
Absolutely. And the winner of this game is going to be playing Frederick Douglass versus that Trinity team, right, Greg? The other team that you mentioned, right, the two teams, it was Louisville St. Xavier, which Ryle beat, and then that Trinity team, right? They are still in there with a chance to win. And that Frederick Douglass team, Greg, if I'm not mistaken, when I covered the game a couple years ago, Michael Mayer, right, the Notre Dame tight end who went to the NFL, they played that Frederick Douglass team in 2019 in the state championship game, and that was a close game. Right, it was 14-7. And what I mean, my point in saying that is that's a really good team that's really well coached and plays really good defense. So the winner of this game, hopefully it is Ryle, especially with the win they got earlier in the season against this team. They're going to have their work cut out for them, obviously, in that state championship game.
Yeah, and hats off to Great Crossing. Ricky Bulling's their coach there. This is their fifth year of existence. They split from Scott County, and there was a new school that they formed down there in Georgetown, Kentucky, and to get to the state championship, 5 years or whatever, or the state semifinals in 5 years. Great job, because they had a tough year last season and bounced back in fantastic fashion.
Absolutely. All right, Greg. Now I want to move on to the game we have all been waiting for, right? Weeks and weeks in the making between Highlands and Ryle. Right, not Highlands, Highlands and Cooper. Excuse me, we were just talking about Ryle. Highlands versus Cooper. Right, Cooper comes into this game undefeated. Right, unblemished schedule. Right, they're going to be taking on Highlands, who has only 2 losses. And Greg, again, there's so much deep diving we have to go into this game. Highlands, we know, plays really good defense. They got quarterback Rio Littmer, right, who's been having a really good year. Cooper with Cam O'Hara. Both of these teams are excellent at quarterback, but there's a lot of deep history with these teams. With with Cooper getting the recent advantage. But Greg, talk to me about this game. What's on your mind in this epic rematch?
Well, this is the fourth meeting between the two schools in the last 23 games. So yeah, they know each other well. Cooper's won the last two of in this little mini rivalry series that's going on. All three games have been decided by 7 points or less. So we know that this is going to be a tough game. But Safwan, here's what I really like. Both of these teams are battle tested.
Yeah.
Ryle comes into this game with 3 wins over state semifinalists. They beat Great Crossing, they beat Ryle, and they also beat Highlands in the regular season. Highlands comes into this game with wins over Class 1A Raceland, who's in the state semifinals, Class 3A Lexington Catholic in the same boat, and Class 4A Cubcath in the same boat, all state semifinalists. And they've lost 2 games to state semifinalists, to Cooper and to Ryle, by Cooper by 3 points and Ryle by 6. So both these teams have been through the battles, and it's going to be, well, all we know is this, Safwan. We are going to have at least one team in the state championship in Kentucky, and it'll come out of this game for sure.
Yeah, that Highlands resume, Greg, that you mentioned, how impressive is that? There is not many teams that are playing in this weekend with the chance at the state championship with a resume that impressive, right? We saw what Covington Catholic did. We're going to talk about them in just a second. And Highlands looking to get over, right, that hump. Cooper has beaten them. But like we said, Greg, they're close games, right? Every single game is just one possession, right? Just which team is going to make that mistake. That's ultimately what this game is going to come down to. Nobody's going to run away with this game. They're so evenly matched. That's why it's going to be such an exciting game, because yet again, it's going to come down to the wire.
Yeah, it really is. And, here's one thing. Hats off to Bob Spire, the head coach at Highlands.
Yeah.
Last week's victory put him 200 games above 500 for his career. I mean, that's 20 seasons of going 10-0. So longevity is something, but to win in that kind of consistent fashion for that long, hats off to Bob. Nicely done.
Absolutely. And Greg, real quick, talking about this Cooper Highlands game again, everybody's been excited for it. This team, right, whoever wins, we know there's going to be a team in the state championship game. Do they have a legitimate shot to win the state championship as well, right? Cooper and Highlands, whoever makes it, this team has a legit shot to win the championship.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Bowling Green. The Purples are taking on South Warren. Both those teams are from Bowling Green, Kentucky area, out of that same county there. And those two teams are rivals and their rivalry goes on way deeper than Cooper and Highlands. So that game's going to be one of those games where, the winner of that one may come out of that one a little bruised and beat up, and it could be difficult. But, the Bowling Green Purples have beaten Cooper twice in the state championship. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a good one, but I do think the winner of this game has got a really good shot of being state champion and bringing that home in Class 5A for Northern Kentucky.
Absolutely. The Cooper versus Highlands game, the game everyone has been waiting for, is going to be Friday with all of the marbles on the line yet again. We are all excited for that game. All right, Greg, I want to move on to the Class 4A playoffs, because there is also so much to talk about with this game and the history that we saw last week that has led us to the game that is going to be played on Friday. Right, the Covington Catholic Colonels, coming in at 11-2, are going to go to Franklin County, and they are 12-1. But Greg, we have to talk about that game they won. The team that had won 4 consecutive state championships, Boyle County, on a 32-game winning streak. And again, I don't want to foreshadow too much, but if Covington Catholic goes on to finish the job in these next couple games, which we know they can, right? If you beat the reigning 4-time state champions, there's not a lot of people doubting you. That win, right? It's still going to go down in history as a huge win in Northern Kentucky. But Greg, we're going to be talking about that win, 20, 30, 40 years from now as one of the biggest upsets and just one of the biggest wins, right? Maybe ever in NKY, considering the circumstances and how good Boyle County was going into that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been some great wins for this area over the years. But again, that 32-game winning streak, 4 straight championships. Yeah. Keep in mind, though, Cubcath's been there quite a bit with Eddie Evanston, and they get to this point, and it's, it's a new group. It's next man up at Cubcath, it seems like every year. And boy, next man up with Cash Harney and Dylan Gazer, 2 guys with 1,300 yards rushing already. Cats got 55 rushing touchdowns. Make no bones about it. They know who they are. They love to run the football, and boy, it's going to be a cold couple of weeks. It looks like a couple of Fridays in a row, and they are really built for this kind of weather. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, what a historic win. And now looking forward to the game that we have going on here very, very soon against this Franklin County team. Greg, talk to me about what you think with this Franklin County team. We know they score points, right? We know they are a high-flying offense and they play good defense. Covington Catholic yet again, right? After such a big win, they got their work cut out for them yet again.
Yeah, so I mean, their backs are against the wall once again. They're going to be the underdogs in this ball game. But I'll tell you what, I just think that the Flyers, Franklin County, they do a good job of keeping teams out of the end zone. But I think as this night wears on, it's going to be one of those evenings where Covcat it shows their will up front, and it will make a big difference in this kind of weather for sure.
Absolutely. Covington Catholic looking to make it back to Kroger Field, a very familiar place for Covington Catholic. And we talked about, Greg, that last week and going into this week. Again, the underdogs. Franklin County is a very good team, right? Well coached. They score a lot of points. They play good defense, as most teams are when we are talking this deep in the playoffs, right? We understand when you're talking state semifinals in late November, early December, these teams don't make a lot of mistakes, right? These teams are well coached. They play good defense, right? They don't turn the ball over. That's what makes great teams great. But there's that Covington Catholic magic, right? Knowing with head coach Eddie Evanston, every single game they feel like just about they have the coaching advantage and know they can make those adjustments and really get right when they need it the most.
So, Flan, we've talked about this time and time again. There's probably not, Eddie Evanston, his teams really personify who the coach is, right? They sort of walk in his style. And I think that there's not a lot of coaches that can get that year in and year out. The team's sort of a microcosm of the coach. And this team is definitely all about swag and Eddie Evanston swag. There's no doubt in my mind that this team it personifies what their coach is. Hard-nosed, blue-collar, get the job done in practice, and you'll see the results on the field.
Absolutely. Again, another reason why you can never count out the Covington Catholic Colonels. We will be watching that game very, very closely and watch it play out. All right, Greg, let's move on to the Class 2A state semifinal game between Lexington Catholic and Beechwood, right? The game is going to be at Beechwood. Greg, both of these teams are historically very, very relevant in Northern Kentucky, right? We're talking state championships. We're talking trips to the state championship year after year after year. Talk to me about this game. We know Beechwood is doing excellent job. And again, we know very well how good Lexington Catholic is. This is going to be a very good game to watch.
So here's what we need to know about Lexington Catholic. Just talking about Covcat. Covcat beat Boyle County last week. They play Franklin County this week. LexCath started the year off playing Boyle County and Franklin County, losing those two games to start their year off, and they've won everything since. So this is a team that knows how to play against bigger schools, much like Beechwood, and it's going to be one of those nights where thank God that Beechwood's at home. I think that'll make a big difference in this one. Not a big drive, not a long drive for LexCath. A very manageable drive up the highway. But, oh, man, Beechwood just has so many guys. Safwan, Tyler Fryman has 22 career touchdowns for them. Erdman's got like 30-plus touchdowns for them. James Cusick has got like 30-plus touchdowns for them. Flaherty's got 68 touchdowns. There's never been, we're looking at this, 150 touchdowns between four players on that Beechwood roster. I mean, that's a lot of touchdowns. You rarely see that in a high school team. Oh, yeah. And by the way, the quarterback, Cash Harney's now sitting in 10th place all time with 115 touchdown passes in his career. Absolutely. So, I mean, they just score. I mean, they just love, and they know how to do it. All those guys can get into the end zone from anywhere on the field. That's the best part about it.
Exactly. And when mentioning Northern Kentucky teams, Greg, Beechwood and Lexington Catholic, and other teams as well, right? Cooper, Highlands, Covington Catholic. This is why you mentioned earlier you play the schedule that you do, right?
Yes.
This is why you are battle tested. Is games late November when we're playing Thanksgiving games, you want to be battle tested, ready to go, right? Lexington Catholic has already played Boyle County, they've already played Franklin County, and they always play, those Northern Kentucky teams, right? Once or twice a year, sometimes even more, right? So, and Beechwood, same thing, right? They play teams above in their division, as does Cooper, Ryle, all those teams. This is why the schedules are so stacked. And even when a Northern Kentucky team, loses 2 games, maybe loses 3 games, you just can't count them out, because when you're beating up on each other, it's iron sharpening iron, right? You're getting better every single week, and you start playing your best football at this time of the schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ryle's made a living of doing it now, joining Beechwood, joining Cub Calf, Highlands the same way. And Cooper really hasn't played the sort of daunting schedules that the other schools have played in the past, but now they are starting to play that. But yeah, I mean, Highlands, Cub Calf, and Beechwood have made a living out of look, I'll play the toughest schedule because I know how well it's going to get me prepared for the postseason. And that's the beauty, too, of the playoffs in Kentucky is pretty much everybody goes. So, yeah, I mean, you can't ask for much more than getting yourself prepared on the level that these teams do.
Absolutely. All right, Greg, with the Kentucky talk being behind us now, let's move over to Southwest Ohio, right? We got a couple of teams that we are excited to watch, that we are very proud of here in the tri-state area. Let's start with Division One, right? Let's start with the big boys, the Moeller Crusaders, right? No surprise there. And now for the 4th year in a row, they are regional champions. They will be playing in the state semifinal game for the 4th consecutive year, but they are going to be taking on a new opponent, right? It is no longer head coach Mo Douglas and the Springfield Wildcats, right? It's going to be Centerville, right? The Elks, right? If I'm not mistaken, that is their mascot, right? The Elks. That game is going to be at Princeton High School, right? So a very favorable draw for Moeller, right? Not a far drive at all from, Moeller to Princeton. So it's going to be a good game there. Greg, talk to me about this Moeller team. They've been number one essentially all year. We expected them to get here. We saw the excellent game that they played yet again against St. X last week, right? The GCL South foes. Moeller is here, standing as regional champions for the 4th year in a row. Greg, finally looking to break through and get to that state championship game.
I mean, I like their chances a lot. I mean, Centerville's won 9 in a row, but boy, I mean, gosh, Moeller's been there 3 times. They know how to do this. Ponatoski almost had that that 4th quarter late in the game rally to win that game against Springfield last year in the state semifinals. Doing a great job. Ponatoski, let's just talk about him for a second. 3,000 plus yards passing, 50 passing touchdowns. Became the 22nd player in Ohio history to have 50 touchdown passes in a season last week. Just been only 2 interceptions. I think he's going to be a handful for that Centerville defense, that secondary. Keep in mind, Centerville hasn't played anybody like this as far as a quarterback goes. Their secondary, there's some good teams in the GWAC, but Springfield doesn't throw the ball with a lot of authority. Fairmont, who won the league, their triple option. There's some good defensive players on the Wayne defense, but the quarterback Tyrell Lewis, he threw the ball a little bit, but not like Ponatoski can throw, and not with the dearth of receivers that he has. So you've got 7 guys on this Moeller team that's got 3 touchdown receptions or more, just something ridiculous. Yeah, at least 3 receiving touchdowns. So he can go to so many options, and we saw it last week too. McCutcheon, the McCutcheon kid, Cooper McCutcheon, the junior tight end, who's got offers from everywhere, making some nice grabs out of nowhere for the Crusaders in that big win last week. So I really like what Moeller has going on for it. I think that I just think they're going to be tough to beat because of being there and doing that. And that said, thank Joe Roberts for stepping up at Princeton and hosting this game, so both teams didn't have to travel an hour and a half up to Sydney or Piqua this year. Centerville's drive down the highway is only a half hour, and it's all highway. It's exit 42 to exit 17. So these two teams are, it's not a long bus ride at all. Before you know it, Centerville's going to be down at Princeton High School, and it's going to be a packed house. Don't kid yourself. Centerville hadn't won a regional championship since 1991. So for them to get there, their fan base is going to be rabid. And if you guys if you don't know it, Centerville does travel very, very well. They pack their house all the time. Football's a way of life up there on Friday nights, and they're going to bring that south into Princeton High School for sure.
Yeah, Greg, really excited for the game. And looking at the stats for Ponatoski, he's 50 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. I mean, are you absolutely kidding me? Those are numbers that, if you have glasses or, you kind of take them off and you look, is that a real stat, right? 50 touchdowns or 2 interceptions. When you have a quarterback that takes care of the ball, I know you mentioned it, you're going to be in every game. And like you said, it's an embarrassment of riches, right? They have 3 to 4 different guys on offense that can go off for 150 yards and score 2 to 3 touchdowns. They're playing well on defense, right? They make plays when they need to make plays. With an awesome team. And just for reference, I know it was a long time ago. It feels like years at this point, but we saw Centerville play a GCL South opponent, right? The St. Xavier Bombers in week 2 of the season, right? Again, say what you want. It was earlier in the season. I get it. But remember, St. Xavier won that game pretty handily, right? It was 34-10. And now Moeller playing good ball. Again, it's going to be a good game, but Moeller's got to feel confident knowing that the GCL South opponent they've beat twice now, St. X handled Centerville. And again, they're going to be confident with their guys anyway, but knowing that there is a resume, knowing there is a previous history, it's got to make Moeller feel even better.
Yeah, but, Bert's going to tell those guys, Bafiani, the coach, he's going to say, hey, look, you can't overlook these guys. They've won 9 in a row. Shane Cole has played a lot differently than he did against St. Xavier, the quarterback there at Centerville. And then running back Parker Johnson, 5'9", 205 pounds, 25 rushing touchdowns, 1,200 yards on the ground. They're not going to be an easy out. And this is going to be one of the best offensive linemen that Moeller's faced all year. And Cool, the fine offensive lineman for Centerville, 6'6", about 270, agile athlete, amazing player. He has not committed yet, but he's got lots of Power 5 offers. A kid who really bloomed late last season and has just taken off and stayed. He's not Paris Johnson, but boy, he's sure got a lot of potential to be that kind of a lineman at the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. And bottom line, right, they're in the state semifinal for a reason, right? What happened in week 2, right? It is something you can look at. It is something you can, maybe analyze a little bit. But here we are, late November. They're in the state semifinal game. So, they are going to be coming with everything that they got, and they will be ready. Again, Moeller looking for that state championship appearance, finally getting over that hump in the past handful of years. Greg, let's move on to Division 2, right? The state semifinal in Division 2. The Anderson Raptors are there for the second consecutive year, right? The Anderson Raptors, they are 14-0 for the first time in school history. We are witnessing history with the Anderson program, Greg, as we speak. Statistically, right through the eye test, through the record, right? Head coach Evan Dreyer is doing an amazing job. And another historical win, not from the Southwest Ohio side, because the team that we thought, many people thought, Anderson was going to play, lost last week, right? Massillon, Washington, who many thought was going to be the state champion yet again in 2024, right? Not a lot of people were betting against them. They lost to this Big Walnut team 14-7. So, Greg, tell me what we need to know about this Big Walnut team and how big of a threat they are to Anderson.
This team just runs football. They're going to take the air out of the ball. They're going to take time off the clock. Their leading rushers got like 2,500 yards rushing this season, 35 rushing touchdowns. And then they got 2 guys relieving him that have close to 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns combined between the 2 of them. This team is really, really good. And you can run the football. It's something else. So, am I on the right team with that Big Walnut team? No, I'm thinking of the other team. I'm thinking of the Indian Valley team that runs the football. I'm sorry about that. This Big Walnut team, they've got they know how to get the job done on defense. They got a lot of things going for them, but when you beat Massillon, Washington like they did last week and hold that team to 7 points, I mean, you look at Massillon, Washington's schedule and who they played, pretty amazing. Big Walnut lost to Bishop Watterson in the first round or opening week of the season, and lost about Watterson pretty good. And Watterson's an excellent team, but after that, they've had some big wins. They've won 14 in a row since that time. 13 in a row since that time. But in the last 10 weeks, 4 of those wins have been by 7 points or less, including a 2 1-point wins. So, yeah, I mean, you can't take Big Walnut for granted. I I am really impressed with what they did last week. And they didn't get this far last year or the year before, but the Golden Eagles are pretty doggone good. It's going to be a tough road for Anderson because, I mean, you think about beating Massillon Washington, and Massillon Washington handled Anderson last year. Massillon Washington had such a tough schedule this year. And you look at who they beat and who they lost to. I mean, it's a who's who. It's a GCL South schedule is what they played. And so that's why I'm more and more impressed with this Big Walnut team.
Absolutely, Greg. And this is going to be, it's got to be a little fun for Anderson because Big Walnut, they really pride themselves on defense, right? 4 of their last 10, right, opponents have been held to 7 points or less, right? So this Big Walnut team, they play defense. So Anderson can now step up knowing, hey, we can win this game. Maybe the difference finally in this game might be the offense, right? We are going to have to go score some points because that defense is really good. They have a good offense too. We know they can score points, but I think Anderson can handle this defense in terms of Anderson's defense can handle their offense. This really might be the game where Anderson has to flex its muscles, right? Justice Burnham is going to have to make plays. The play calling is going to have to be good. I think they might have to be a little bit more balanced, but Anderson's got to feel good knowing that their offense, right, has to dictate the pace of this game, and they're going to have to go score some points, which is their specialty.
Yeah, and the irony of all this is last week, Anderson beat LaSalle 28-21. That was the closest game they've had all year. First game they played against a team, every other game they won by 14 points or more. So, I mean, they finally had a close game, and they won it. Now, Walnut Hills or Big Walnut's used to playing in those kind of games. So, that's a little different. But to be tested like that and to be tested against LaSalle, a pretty good measure of who this team is defensively and mentally upstairs. I think Evan Dreyer's got a team mentally that might take this thing all the way. And boy, I really would like Evan Dreyer to win one of these things. He's had such a good run as a head coach, and to add him to the list of head coaches that have a ring on their finger, that would be pretty special here in Southwest Ohio.
Yes, I agree completely. Again, the winner of that game in Division Two, Division Two, will be playing the winner of Hoban versus Avon, right? Hoban versus Avon, and that game would be on Thursday, Greg, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Thursday,
December 5th,
7:00. It's the first one. Yep. Kicks off the tourney. Yeah. So
absolutely. So Division Two would be a Thursday game if you have any plans on going to that Division Two state championship game. And Greg, I want to finish off with one of the best stories, right, that we've had this year, right? Because this team, we all know that they don't consider themselves nearly a Cinderella team because when you look at their team, they're just littered with just Division I athletes and just dudes and what we call, dogs all over the field, just playmakers. How about the Taft Senators, right? Tyler Williams and the Taft Senators, they are in the Division IV state semifinal games. And Greg, this is history for both of these teams, right? They are going to be taking on second-seeded Indian Valley, who comes into this game undefeated. Both schools are in the state semifinals for the first time. But Greg, I want to talk about the Taft Senators. What an awesome year that they've had. What a joy it's been to see them make it this far. Again, hopefully they have another win in them, maybe even 2 wins in them. But Greg, Tyler Williams and this Taft team, what an awesome story they've been.
Really haven't, and we're really not talking enough about how good this team is. They have 37 rushing touchdowns, 37 passing touchdowns, 11 return touchdowns. The team just scores, and then they play great defense. Drayden Pavey, all those guys on that side of the ball, they've just done a great job. And you know what? Tyler Williams, you know him from when he played at Colerain and then at Akron. He just wins. He's so ultra competitive. And I think you're seeing that in this team now too. The ultra competitive, but there's a hunger about Tyler Williams and everything he does. I mean, you know him now. We've seen him now for 4 or 5 years as a head coach. To get them to this point, to maintain that level of Taft football in the CMAC, and to do what he's done there, I just like his ferocity and the way he goes about doing everything. And I think we're going to see something special. Now, that said, I was talking earlier, I got the Big Walnut team and the Indian Valley team a little confused. This Indian Valley team is the one that Kinsey kid for them. He's got 2,500 yards and 35 touchdowns rushing. So a heck of a player. Grady Kinsey is his name, and then his 2 backups have combined for 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns as well. So they're going to take the air out of the ball. but I don't know if they've seen anybody as athletic as Taft. So we're going to find out. But that said, there's going to be few possessions. So Taft is going to have to make the most of every possession and make sure they cherish each possession. No stupid mistakes, no penalties. You've got to be precise in a game like this because Indian Valley is not going to come off the field. And how funny is this? 2 weeks ago, Taft played Indian Hill Braves, and now they're playing the Indian Valley Braves. So, I mean, couldn't ask for crazier stuff than that.
Again, Taft is here to slay all the Braves, right? And we say that in the football context, right? We're saying that in the football context, right? And again, Greg Taft, like you said, Tyler Williams, we've seen him, going back. He's just been in the area, right? Played at Coleraine High School, has been coaching here. He has, the Southwest Ohio football, right? Lineage, the Southwest Ohio football tradition. When you're talking about the greats, right, of Southwest Ohio in terms of coaching and playing, right? It doesn't get any, the Southwest Ohio football tradition, right? You can start it and have that conversation with Tyler Williams right at the top of that list.
I think he's getting close. He gets that state championship under his belt in a CMAC school. Heck yeah, you can put him in that conference or the conversation with a guy like Eddie Evanston, who was a great player in college as well, and high school over in Northern Kentucky. There's a couple other guys here that were great coaches. Or Parker over at Princeton was a great high school player, then a great college player at Ohio U, and now he's a great coach. I mean, the list goes on. So, I think you really a player / coach that's had success like that. It's sort of rare, but Tyler's special coach, and I think this team has I don't think they're ready to quit. I honestly think if they win this, then they got to go play Glenville, who's won the last couple of championships in Division IV. And we know how good Glenville is. They're sort of like a D1 team, and they got just as many athletes as does a Taft. So we'll see there.
Absolutely. The athletes will be through and through at the Taft versus Indian Valley game. All right, Greg, before we get out of here, again, I want to just get your overall thoughts, right? Week 15, Southwest Ohio, Northern Kentucky. We talked about all the games. We gave our analysis, but overall, looking at the big picture, state championship berths are on the line, right? It is Thanksgiving weekend football, and we know what that means. Everything is on the line. All the marbles, all the chips are in the middle of the table now. So overall, what are your thoughts as we head into game day?
When you get to this point, everybody's so evenly matched this year, more than I think ever. So the Final Four teams and all both in Northern Kentucky and in Ohio. It's hard to pick them from right here. I do like Muller because they've been there. They might have a chance to have to play St. Ed's again. So we'll see there. Anderson's in the gauntlet, the two teams that await or the team they play in Big Walnut, and then the two teams that await Avon and Hoban. Those guys were, right there in the Final Four last year and are hungry for a state title over, because Massillon's not there. So we'll see. I like Cubcat. I do like where they're going, and I like the way they're playing, and I like they're built for this. And, Cooper's on a mission. They almost seem to be destined, but heck, Highlands knows them so well that they could really rock the boat right here on Friday night for sure.
Absolutely. We have a historic slate of games with state championships on the line all over the tri-state area. And remember to follow our social media pages, right? Our Twitter page, the venue formerly known as Twitter page, and Instagram, right? We're going to be having updates of some of these games all over our social media. And as always, right, tristatefootball.com/scores. You can go to the Underground Sport Shop scoreboard. We'll have all the scores there as well. And again, there's so much more to talk about in the next, 7 to 10 days with hopefully, a lot of our teams winning. And again, we're going to get you caught up on all of that. So we thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, more analysis to be had, a fun night of high school football coming up. We are excited for it. For Greg Shoemaker, I'm Safwan Alvi. We thank you so much for joining us on the Week 15 tristatefootball.com preview show.